So I'm renting an apartment and I fall in it. I still might have a claim against my landlord?
Yeah, it depends on why you fell. Obviously, if you just tripped over, something you left on the ground, you're not going to have a claim in that situation. But there are other situations in which you may have a claim. So, for example, let's say you just moved into an apartment and the AC is leaking and it caused a puddle to form on the kitchen floor and you slip, and that's something the landlord knew about and didn't fix. That could be something where they're responsible for it. Again, we're talking about in terms of always when we're talking about premises, slip and falls, trip and falls, things like that. The question we are constantly being asked is who was more aware and could have fixed the danger.
Okay.
And so that's sort of the overarching thing we need to remember. That's why if you slip and fall at like a Publix, the general thought is Publix knew more about what's going in the store than the customer did. Mm-hmm. Now, in an apartment, it's sort of a weird calculus because who knows more about what's going on in an apartment? Now, generally, it's the tenant, but that's not always the case because sometimes there's a split responsibility. My ceiling's been leaking. I've been telling my landlord 10 times about it. Now in the middle of the night, I go to get a cup of water and I slip and fall. Mm-hmm. There's probably shared responsibility there.
Okay.
And when we're talking about fault in that situation, we're probably going to end up apportioning it. So we'll say it's 50-50 or it's 60-40 or whatever it is. And you're going to be able to recover the percentage that is the landlord's fault.
What about in that same scenario, I didn't report that, I don't know, the roof's leaking and now I slip.
Right.
Does that change the percentages essentially?
It may change it or it may keep your landlord off the hook because in that situation, the landlord will say, I had no idea that this was an issue. And so how could I have been asked to fix it? Mm-hmm. And then you can sort of get creative with it. You can look at maybe roof age or inspection reports or if previous tenants had reported it. But it's definitely more difficult than if you have the paperwork yourself.
And then what about in general, I'm living in this person's house or renting this person's house from them. Are there, like you said, roof, maybe appliance, like specific things that they are responsible for having upkeep on to keep the house safe?
Yeah, I mean, landlord-tenant law is pretty specific. I always say in general, your lease controls 90% of it. And it's important to look at what that lease, delineates in terms of duties. But I've had people that are renting houses and slip and fall, for example, like on a deck. And the deck, stairs didn't have like grip tape on them. And, we were able to make a claim against the landlord in that situation because that was actually on move-in day. I remember that client. She was moving in when she slipped. And so, their argument is we had no idea how slippery the stairs could get. The landlord should have known, and that's why the claim was made.
And maybe it would have been a harder conversation to have if they'd been living there for a year.
Right, exactly. Because again, now we're talking about who knows more about the condition of the property. Mm-hmm. And it's shifting away from the landlord in that case towards the tenant.